Hi there, Mrs. Ehlke here, and thanks so much for watching Ehlke Art. Today I'm kind of in a Thanksgiving mode, and one of my favorite symbols of Thanksgiving is a cornucopia because it shows us kind of this abundance of blessings that we have, right? All of these things to be thankful for. So today I am drawing and painting a cornucopia. I'm doing it step by step to show all kinds of wonderful things that we can grow, maybe harvest, of course, in my case, buy at the grocery store, but still lots of things to be thankful for. And of course, the horn of plenty that kind of holds all of this stuff together. I also added a little shadow underneath with watercolor. So if you would like to join me for this painting, please follow along. And if you are liking these videos, please hit that like button and subscribe. We are climbing up to about 9,000 subscribers right now, hoping to reach that 10,000 mark, which is super awesome because we love to share our art with others all over the world. All right, thanks so much for watching and enjoy the tutorial. For this project, I have a piece of watercolor paper. Got my watercolor paints, and I'm drawing with a Sharpie. If you'd rather draw with pencil first and then trace your lines, you could do that. I'm going to start way over on the bottom left corner of my picture, and I'm going to think of a food I can start with. I think I'm starting with a tomato. So I started with a curve. I added a zigzag line for kind of the leafy part and the little stem, and voila, I have a tomato. Next, I'm thinking of maybe another food I could add. I'm thinking about maybe drawing some smaller circles here behind my tomato to indicate some grapes. Now, the nice part about this is you can kind of have your food overlapping. So as I'm drawing this, I'm thinking which food is in front and which food is behind. So my tomato is in front of my grapes. Next, I think I'm going to put a banana in here. My banana is going to be kind of next to my tomato. And let's see some other food that I could put in my picture here. Maybe next I'll do another round fruit, this time an apple. Throw a little leaf on it like that. Some other food I could do. Let's see, I'm gonna throw maybe a couple more grapes in here. I'll do another round one. This time maybe it'll be like an orange or something. I mean, it really doesn't matter. There's all kinds of different foods you could draw. Yours doesn't need to be exactly like mine. I'm just trying to think of some different foods I could put in here. I'm going to add an ear of corn. So there's the bumpy part where that you can actually see the corn kernels. And I'm going to make kind of a long part over here. And this corn hasn't been shucked yet, so it still has some of those leafy greens on it. It's just kind of hanging out down below. Okay, you can see I've gone just about halfway across my paper, maybe a little bit farther with some of this food. Next, I need to kind of add more layering behind the food that I have. So I might go in with something larger. Maybe right here I'll throw in pepper. That might kind of fit nicely behind this corn. And I'm just trying to think of maybe some other food I could put in. Of course, nice and large would be a pumpkin, so I can always throw that in. That's a great space filler. Watermelon's a good space filler too, so you can decide what kind of food you'd like to put kind of as a larger central food. So a nice big pumpkin is a great way to kind of fill up some space. Now, at this point, I want to start getting the actual horn included in my picture. And that's going to be kind of around here, like kind of right behind this pumpkin. So I'm going to start kind of along the side somewhere. You could do above or next to the corn. And I'm going to make a curved line, and it can run into the pumpkin, it can go over the pumpkin, and then kind of come back down. This is the opening of the horn. And then I'm going to make another curved line that goes right next to it, kind of for that opening section of the horn. And then I have a little bit more space inside of the horn where I can throw maybe another gourd or something like that, a smaller pumpkin. Maybe I'll have like a pear or something back in here. Whatever you can fit in that extra space to make it look like there's food inside of the horn. I also want to maybe add some kind of like lengthy pieces with different feels. So I'm thinking grain, something that, you know, would grow and just kind of give a nice like extended look. You could do corn stalks, you could do anything that's kind of long and skinny, just to help kind of give a different texture to the things that we're adding to the cornucopia. Maybe I'll even just add some leafy type thing in the middle here. So I mean, anything that would kind of show growth, harvest, the blessings that we of course have been given. I've got a little bit more space kind of down here on the bottom, but maybe I'll add some things in a minute. All right, I want to draw my horn. You can see I'm adding some more curved lines. They're like backward C's, and they all kind of connect to each other. And as I get closer to the side of my paper, my curves are going to get a little bit shorter. So I'm going to get closer and closer together when I start and stop. And then as I get close to the edge, I'm going to start curving upward. You can see my curves are really small now. And then you can decide how much of a hook you have on the end. I mean, some of them don't really hook at all. This one's going to hook quite a bit, I guess, along the end to make the top part of my cornucopia. I'm also going to add some curved lines on the first part of the basket, just to kind of give that different edge look, like this is kind of a baskety type woven piece. And then I'm also going to add some lines that kind of go back towards the tip as well, just kind of some little dashes here to indicate that, yeah, this is kind of like a basket type weave going on. So that just gives it a little bit of extra detail. I could get really fancy with this part, but I don't want to get that fancy. So I'm trying to keep it simple with just some dashed lines to kind of indicate that. All right, I still have some areas down here. I could throw a couple of really small things. Think maybe berries, like blueberries or strawberries or cherries, raspberries, any of those types of things, you know, that might spill out of the front that are a little bit smaller. And maybe another little piece of grain or wheat or something that's kind of hanging out, maybe some leaves or something, just to give it a little bit of extra excitement down here on the bottom. Okay, I think that's enough food for now, and it's time to start getting into some color. Now, I sped this up a little bit just so that you can kind of get the idea, but basically I'm using a round brush and some watercolor paint, and I'm filling in my picture with color. Now, when using watercolor, remember that you don't want to paint two things right next to each other. You want to let the paint dry first on one area before painting right next to it, or your colors will bleed. So I'm starting with the cornucopia. It's a nice big section. I'm painting it brown, trying to stay in the lines as best as I can, and I'm kind of liking how that's looking. Now, silly me, I went ahead and painted the inside of my cornucopia right away, and this black is going to bleed into my brown because my brown's not dry. So I'll have to kind of touch that up. I am using a little bit of extra brown along the bottom here just to give it a little bit of shading, and you can even kind of bring it up on some of those lines just to give a little bit more depth and dimension. I'm taking a dry brush and trying to kind of suck up that extra paint that is leaking into my cornucopia. Now I'm just going to kind of jump around and try to paint things that either are the same color or that don't touch anything else, so that I don't have my paper bleeding into other things. So I did the bananas. The grapes don't touch the banana or the corn, so I can kind of jump over and do some grapes, and that's fine. What else is not touching here? Let's see. I could do some blueberries down here. I could do the green leaf here, the green part of the strawberry. I can add some kind of golden color for this grain. Everything else is kind of touching, so I need to wait till it dries. All right, I gave it some time to dry. Now I'm coming in and painting some of the other areas. Again, just trying to be careful and wait until things are dry before I go in with other paint. I'm adding a little bit of shading while the paint is wet, so like I'm adding a little bit of red to the orange pumpkin, making the apple. And I don't mind if the apple is right next to the pumpkin, because if some of the red bleeds out, it won't be a big deal. I was kind of silly in placing an apple next to a tomato because they're both red, so I'm maybe trying to make the apple more true red, and maybe I'll do the tomato more of like an orangish red. So you can kind of try to get the variety in there. Yeah, just going around, adding some color to all of these areas. Jumping around so that I'm not painting something that is wet right next to an area and having my paint bleed together. As things dry, you can go back over them, add more details, give them another layer of color. I'm gonna make this a green pepper. I'm being careful next to my pumpkin. Hopefully the green doesn't bleed into my pumpkin. Trying to make my tomato a little more orangish so that it looks different enough from my apple. I put my orange next to my orange pumpkin, which is also kind of silly. But oh well, I'm making it work. I kind of want the pumpkin inside to look white, so I just added a little bit of shading. Last thing I want to do is to kind of help ground my picture, make it look like it's not just floating. I'm adding a little bit of a shadow as if it's like sitting on a table or something. I'm doing that by mixing a blue with a little bit of brown. It makes kind of this nice grayish tone. And then I'll darken it a little bit more right next to my cornucopia so that the shadow right under the food and the basket part are a little bit more dark. Then it kind of fades into the lighter areas. So this just kind of helps bring it together, make it look a little bit more complete. Then I will sign my name and call it a masterpiece. Hope you enjoyed painting with me. Please check out my channel, Ehlke Art, for more fun tutorials.